The penthouse felt different that night. It wasn't the sweeping view of the city where thousands of lights bled into one another like melted gold. It wasn't the quiet hum of the security system Ethan had set on maximum alert. It wasn't even the silence between them, fragile and full. It was the way Kiara stood in the center of the living room, as if afraid to move too quickly and break something she didn't know how to fix. Ethan watched her from a few feet away, hands loose at his sides, careful not to get too close. He wanted to touch her. God, he wanted to. But tonight wasn't about wanting. Tonight was about truth. Sit with me? Ethan asked softly, motioning toward the couch. She hesitated, not because she didn't want to, but because sitting beside him felt like crossing a threshold she couldn't uncross. Finally, she exhaled long and quiet and sat, not close enough for their legs to touch, but close enough that their breathing seemed to fall into the same rhythm. For a while, neither spoke. The city whispered beneath them. Lucky wandered around, sniffing at corners and occasionally rubbing against Kiara's leg, sensing her nerves. It was Kiara who broke the silence. Her voice was soft, but steady, like someone deciding at last to stop running. 4 years ago, she said, I didn't walk away as cleanly as you think. Ethan turned his head eyes fixed on her profile. I stood under your building, Kiara continued, gaze fixed on the window 3 times. 3 separate nights. Ethan's breath caught. Kiara's voice cracked just slightly. I stood there, just looking at the lights in your apartment, wondering if you were okay, wondering if you missed me, wondering if what I'd done, what I was forced to do, would ever stop hurting. She swallowed, blinking against sudden heat in her eyes. And every time I told myself to go up, to knock on your door, to tell you the truth. But, she let out a trembling sigh. I panicked. I turned around. I ran. Ethan had felt pain before. Loss, anger, even betrayal. But what he felt now, this deep aching grief for what they lost, was unlike anything he had ever known. He leaned forward, forearms braced on his knees, eyes fixed on the floor, because looking at her might break him. I waited for you, he whispered. Every night, Kiara. I sat on that damn couch and told myself you'd come back, that we'd fix it, that you didn't just stop loving me. Her breath hitched. He hadn't meant it as an accusation, but the guilt in her eyes was immediate and sharp. I never stopped, she said, not once. Silence swallowed the room again, this time heavier, denser, full of 4 years of unsaid things. Ethan finally moved, slowly, carefully, as if she were something fragile he wasn't allowed to hurt again. He shifted closer just enough for their knees to brush. Kiara, he murmured. Can I? Yes. She didn't even let him finish. Her answer was small, but it carried the weight of everything she'd held back. Ethan reached out and pulled her into his arms, not the way a man lunges for something he's starving for, not the way he kisses or touches or takes, but the way someone holds a memory returned from the dead. Kiara melted into him with a soft exhale, her forehead pressing into his shoulder, her fingers curling into the fabric of his shirt like she needed the anchor. No urgency, no hunger, just closeness, warmth. 2 broken hearts stitching themselves back together at the seams. Ethan tightened his arms around her, one hand sliding up to cradle the back of her head. I'm sorry, he whispered into her hair, for not seeing what you were going through, for not fighting harder, for letting you think you were alone. Her voice was muffled against him. I didn't give you a chance to fight, and I would have, he said, voice trembling. I would have fought everyone and everything for you. Her fingers tightened in his shirt. I know. That's why I ran. When she finally pulled back, her eyes were glistening, but calmer. There was a softness between them now, something tentative, but real. Ethan, she murmured, looking down at her hands. I don't know where we go from here. I don't know how to fix all the damage. I don't even know if I'm stable enough to try. You don't have to be, he said. We don't fix everything tonight. We just start. Something inside her shifted just a fraction, but enough for him to see it. A crack of light in the darkness. A beginning. Hours passed. They talked about things that had haunted both of them. About her father. About Ethan's guilt. About the woman in the hoodie. About Layla. About fear and anger and what it meant to lose someone you loved without ever stopping loving them. They didn't touch beyond holding hands. They didn't kiss. They didn't cross any lines they weren't ready to cross. But something deeper than intimacy grew quietly between them. A truth neither dared speak aloud. They had never stopped being each other's home, and it terrified both of them. Sometime after 2 a.m., Kiara drifted asleep on the couch, head resting on Ethan's shoulder. He didn't move, didn't dare. He just watched her, brushing a curl away from her cheek with the gentlest touch. She looked peaceful, in a way he hadn't seen in years. He pressed a soft kiss to her hair. I'm not losing you again, he whispered into the quiet rooms. Not this time. For a moment, everything felt still, safe. Then Ethan's phone buzzed. A quiet vibration on the glass table, barely audible, but enough to break the spell. He reached for it carefully, not waking Kiara. One new email. No sender. Encrypted, marked urgent. He opened it. One sentence. Cold, precise, deadly. If you continue investigating Kiara's father, another person will die. Ethan went completely still. His heartbeat slowed, then accelerated in a painful rush. Under his arm, Kiara shifted in her sleep, unaware of the danger curling around them like smoke. Ethan stared at the message, jaw tightening with pure silent fury. Someone was watching. Someone knew his every move. Someone was willing to kill. He powered off the phone, pulled Kiara closer, and whispered a vow he'd never break, over my dead body. Outside the glass windows, the city lights flickered like distant warnings. The night wasn't quiet anymore. Something was coming. Something darker than anything they'd faced yet. And Ethan Huxley was ready to burn the whole world down before he let it touch her. Ethan barely slept. Not because Kiara had fallen asleep against him, warm trusting, for the first time in years, but because of the email that still burned behind his eyes. A threat. A warning. A line drawn in the sand. Someone wanted the truth buried, which only made Ethan more determined to dig it up. By the time the sun crept over the horizon, Kiara was still sleeping curled under a blanket on the couch. Lucky was asleep at her feet, tail twitching in some happy dog dream. Ethan stood in the doorway watching them, his entire world framed in morning light, and felt something heavy settle in his chest. Love, fierce, infuriating, irreversible. He kissed Kiara's temple softly so as not to wake her, then slipped out of the penthouse. He had a mission. The private data server was located beneath Huxtech headquarters. Restricted access, biometric locks, camera blind spots, designed by a predecessor Ethan had fired for paranoia. Today, he was grateful for that paranoia. Nathaniel met him at the iron door, holding 2 coffees and a small black drive. "You look like hell," Nathaniel said, handing him 1 cup. "Good," Ethan muttered. "Means I matched my night." Nathaniel stared at him for a moment, concern flickering in his eyes. This about Kiara, Ethan didn't answer, didn't have to. Nathaniel exhaled. "All right, let's get started." The door slid open. Rows of servers blinked like an artificial galaxy. Cold air rushed past them. Nathaniel pulled up the files Ethan had requested medical database access for one specific patient, Arthur Nix, Kiara's father. The regular files had been scrubbed clean years ago, replaced with vague data and innocuous charts. But Nathaniel pointed to a locked subfolder. "You'll need high-level Huxley clearance for this." Ethan frowned. "I am high-level Huxley clearance." "No," Nathaniel said quietly. "Not this level." He typed in Ethan's access code anyway. "Access denied." Nathaniel looked up at him. "This requires authorization reserved for the family board. Your mother, your brother, not you." A chill slid down Ethan's spine. "Open it," he said. Nathaniel hesitated. "Ethan, open it." Nathaniel sighed, taking out the black drive. "You didn't get this from me." "What is it?" "A back door. I shouldn't even have it. But I trust your judgment more than I trust half the people running this city." He plugged it in. The folder opened. The documents inside weren't just medical records. They were transactions, financial orders, cost-cutting directives, board communications. Ethan's pulse kicked hard against his ribs as he scrolled. Then he saw it. A purchase order. Huxley Strategic Holdings acquires Westbridge Medical Center 51% share. The date, 11 months before Kiara's father was admitted. His mother's signature stamped at the bottom. He clicked the next file. A cost reduction directive. Reduce non-essential expenditures in long-term care units. New budget allocation to prioritize high-profile patients. At first glance, it looked clinical. Detached. Normal. But the implication was monstrous. Then the next file. Treatment restriction approval. Arthur Nix, non-critical symptoms. Adjust medication to lower-tier alternatives. Limit specialist consultations unless medically necessary. Review for potential early discharge. Ethan froze. His stomach twisted into a cold, hard knot. "No," he whispered. "No, this isn't." But the dates lined up. The decline in Kiara's father's health, the sudden complications, the early discharge threat, the night Kiara disappeared from Ethan's life. Nathaniel stepped back, watching him with quiet dread. "Ethan, we shouldn't be in here." Ethan didn't look away from the screen. "My mother knew," he whispered. "She knew exactly what she was doing." Nathaniel's voice was gentle. "You don't know that yet." "Oh, I know," Ethan said, jaw clenched. "This wasn't a mistake. This was policy." His hands shook, because the truth was worse than he imagined. His family hadn't accidentally hurt Kiara. They had engineered it to save money, to reallocate resources, to protect their profits. And Kiara had lost her father. His chest ached, breath coming too fast. "God," he whispered, How do I tell her? How do I tell her my family, my own mother, is responsible for this? Nathaniel didn't answer. Some truths had no soft landing. When Ethan returned to the penthouse, the air felt thick with quiet. Kiara stood in the kitchen, making tea, looking small, in one of his oversized shirts he'd given her the night before. She smiled gently when she saw him. Morning. That smile. Soft, hopeful, unaware. It broke him. He wanted to turn around, wanted to postpone this, wanted to protect her from the pain he was about to deliver. But Kiara deserved the truth. Kiara, he said softly, we need to talk. She stiffened, immediately alert. What is it? Come sit. No, she said, fear flickering in her eyes. Just say it. Please. Ethan took a breath, then another, then spoke the truth that tore them both apart. Your father's hospital, the one he was treated in, he swallowed, was owned by my family's investment fund. The mug slipped from Kiara's hands and shattered on the floor. Her face drained of color. Ethan rushed toward her, but she stepped back as if burned. No, she whispered. No, no. Ethan, don't say that. Don't you dare. Kiara. No. Her voice cracked violently. Tell me you're wrong. Tell me you're mistaken. That it isn't true. He couldn't. His silence was the answer. Kiara's breath came in broken gasps. My father died, she whispered, shaking because your family wanted to save money. No, Ethan said desperately. Not me. I didn't know. Kiara, I swear to you. But they knew. Her eyes shone with tears. Your mother, your people. They knew. Ethan nodded once, an admission that shattered something between them. Kiara turned away, hand pressed over her mouth as tears spilled freely. He reached for her shoulder. She pulled away. Don't touch me right now, she whispered. The words gutted him. Ethan lowered his hand slowly. He wanted to explain, wanted to undo every piece of this nightmare. But Kiara stood with her arms wrapped around herself, trembling, like her body was trying not to break in half. After a long, agonizing silence, she turned back to him. This wasn't your fault, she said hoarsely. I know that. Relief flickered in his chest, only to crumble when she added, but it still hurts, so much. He stepped closer slowly, like approaching a wounded animal. Kiara, let me make it right. She closed her eyes. Ethan, you can't bring him back. I can bring the truth, he said. I can expose what they did. I can fight for you, for him, for us. She opened her eyes, and this time she didn't run. Not emotionally, not physically, not completely. I'm angry, she whispered. I'm heartbroken. I'm terrified. But I'm still here. He cupped her face gently, forehead resting against hers. Thank you, he breathed. Kiara leaned into him, shaking. He held her like she was the center of his universe because she was. Hours later, after Kiara had finally fallen asleep from emotional exhaustion, Ethan returned to the server room. Nathaniel was waiting. You're not going to like this, he said, pulling up another file. We tracked the man in the hoodie. Ethan's pulse spiked, and Nathaniel opened a contract signed years ago. A payment trail, large sums, monthly transfers. The recipient, Luke McCallum, Westbridge medical supervisor. The sender, Ethan's blood, froze. Daniel Huxley, his brother, the man he had trusted. the man who inherited the family's ruthlessness, the man who had everything yet still wanted more. Nathaniel looked up, face grave. Ethan, your brother was connected to the man watching Kiara. Ethan closed his eyes, fury igniting like an inferno. Another truth, another betrayal, another war he had to fight. And this time, he wasn't fighting for a company. He was fighting for Kiara. Daniel Huxley's office sat on the top floor of the Huxley family tower. Sleek, cold, surgical. Everything about it designed to intimidate. Ethan had been here countless times in his life, but never with a heart full of rage. He didn't knock. He pushed the door open so hard it slammed against the wall. Daniel looked up from his desk, calm as ever. Sharp suit, sharper eyes. The perfect air, golden sun, ruthless strategist. Brother Daniel said coolly, leaning back. You look upset. Ethan strode inside, fists clenched. Cut the shit. Daniel's eyebrow lifted, slight irritation, slight amusement. This early in the day, I haven't even had my tea. Ethan slammed a folder on the desk. Papers burst out, contracts, payment logs, staff records. Daniel didn't flinch. I know about Luke McCallum, Ethan said, voice low, but seething. I know he supervised Kiara's father's care, and I know you paid him. Daniel took a slow breath, as if disappointed rather than surprised. You should have stayed out of this, he said, digging into old hospital records. That's beneath you. You're behind it, Ethan said. A man followed Kiara, watched her home, sent threats, and you paid him. Daniel's eyes hardened. The temperature in the room dropped. He was supposed to keep an eye on her, Daniel said simply, to make sure the past didn't resurface. Ethan's stomach twisted in disgust. To protect the family, to protect you, Daniel corrected, leaning forward. Kiara is dangerous, Ethan. She's emotional, impulsive. She sees the world through suffering and survival, and she drags everyone into her storms. Ethan stepped closer, jaw tight. She lost her father. Tragic, Daniel said, without softness. But tragedies happen every day. Some have benefits. The world slowed. Ethan stared at him. Daniel tapped one page in the folder. Her father's death closed a lawsuit, saved millions, allowed us to acquire Westbridge at a discount. It helped this family recover from a debt spiral. You should be thanking the universe for timing. Ethan felt something inside him snap. No one deserved to die for a profit margin. Daniel shrugged. Kiara wasn't supposed to die, but his death wasn't inconvenient. Ethan's vision blurred with fury. You caused this. You were part of this. Daniel held his gaze steadily. I followed orders from our mother, Ethan. Grow up. Families like ours do what needs to be done. You don't get to play naive anymore. Ethan's breath hitched. Our mother gave that order. Daniel's expression darkened. She made a decision for the greater good. Father would have done the same. Ethan's pulse pounded in his ears. Don't drag our father into this. Why not? Daniel rose, towering with quiet authority. You're the sentimental one, always were. But this family doesn't run on sentiment. It runs on power, money, strategy. He stepped close, face inches from Ethan's. And bringing Kiara back into your life destroys all three. Ethan didn't move. Daniel continued, calm, icy, cruel. She walked away once. She'll do it again, and she'll destroy you on the way out. Men like us don't survive scandals tied to women like that was it. Ethan's fist flew before the sentence finished. The impact cracked across Daniel's jaw, sending him stumbling back into the glass wall. The sound echoed through the office. Daniel straightened slowly, wiping a thin line of blood from his lip, eyes blazing with something dark. "Well," he whispered, almost smiling, "I suppose we're past words now." Ethan stepped forward again, breath ragged. "If you ever insult her again," he said, voice shaking with rage. "I swear I'll—" "What?" Daniel snapped. "Hit me. Expose the family. Destroy everything our parents built." Ethan didn't blink. "If it means protecting Kiara," he said, "I'll burn every last thing connected to this family." Daniel's eyes widened, not with fear, but with something colder. "So that's your choice," he murmured. "Her or us?" Ethan didn't hesitate. "If I have to choose," he said clearly, "I choose Kiara every damn time." Silence. Long, heavy, irrevocable. Daniel's voice dropped to a dangerous whisper. "Then understand this: if you continue down that path, you lose everything. The company, the inheritance, the future father planned for you. All gone." "Good," Ethan hissed. "I don't want anything built on someone else's suffering." Daniel shook his head slowly, disappointment radiating from him. "You're throwing your legacy away for a woman who already left you once." "And I'd do it again," Ethan said. Daniel's expression sharpened into something lethal. "You'll regret this. It's better than regretting not fighting for her." For a moment, the air between them felt like an electric wire stretched to breaking. Decades of brotherhood, tension, rivalry, and unspoken wounds pulsed between them. Daniel finally sat down, adjusting his suit like nothing significant had happened. "Get out," he said quietly, "before I say something we can't take back." Ethan didn't move. Daniel's eyes lifted colder than steel. "We're done here." Ethan turned without another word and walked toward the door. He didn't look back. If he had, he would have seen Daniel's jaw clench with something like betrayal. Real betrayal, not the corporate kind, the kind that hurts. Ethan didn't get 10 steps down the hallway before his phone buzzed. One new message, no number, just a video file. He froze. Not here, not now. But his instincts told him he needed to see it. He tapped play. The screen filled with Daniel's office. The entire confrontation. Every word. Every threat. The punch. The confession. It had all been recorded. Ethan's stomach dropped. Who was watching? How long had they been listening? Who was manipulating the strings from the shadows? His phone buzzed again. A text. Just one line. "You're welcome." Then a name, Layla. Ethan's blood turned to ice. Layla wasn't gone. She was watching. Behind every corner. Inside every crack. A ghost with an obsession and a camera. The real danger had only just begun. The first sign that Layla hadn't left the city came at 8:12 a.m. Nathaniel rushed into Ethan's office without knocking, pale and tight-jawed. "Ethan, you need to see this." He tossed a tablet onto the desk. Ethan tapped the screen. A video feed flickered to life. A grainy rooftop shot. A woman crouched behind an air vent camera lens pressed to her eye. Layla. Her hair messy, her expression hollowed by exhaustion and desperation. She wasn't running. She was watching. She zoomed in on a window Kiara's. Kiara inside the penthouse, unaware. Then Layla whispered into the camera mic, soft, trembling, obsessive. I've loved you for 4 years, Ethan. 4 years. She's just someone passing through your life, but I was always here. Ethan's stomach dropped. Nathaniel whispered, she never left. She's been watching them since the night she fled the office. Ethan pushed back from his chair so abruptly it screeched across the floor. Find her, he said, voice trembling with fury. I want every rooftop searched, every street camera traced. I want her brought in quietly. She's unstable. But Layla never made things quiet. The second sign came an hour later. Huxley's internal communication channels lit up all at once, hundreds of notifications firing simultaneously. Hux chat, email, Slack, project boards, company-wide monitors. One message, repeated again and again. Your CEO is sleeping with his assistant. Huxley is being controlled by a mysterious black girl who has not earned her position. Every word was sharpened to wound. The racial tone wasn't subtle. It was strategic, designed to provoke outrage, suspicion, division. Kiara froze as she read it on her phone. Her chest constricted, her throat closed. Not again. Not another scandal. Not another reason for people to question her worth, her identity, her right to exist in this space. Ethan stormed into the room, eyes blazing. I'll handle this. Kiara shook her head, breath trembling. No, you can't fix this. If this spreads, it already spread, he cut in, but you are not leaving. Kiara's voice cracked. I can't let you be dragged down because of me. This company is your life, Ethan. If people believe this, if they think I manipulated you, they won't. They already do. Her voice broke on that truth. She stepped back from him. Maybe I should step away, just until this dies down. It's the only way to protect you. Ethan stared at her like she'd hit him. Kiara, he whispered, don't do this. I have to. No, he said urgently, stepping toward her. No, you don't. You're not protecting me. You're killing me. Her breath caught. You don't mean that. He grabbed her hands, pressing them to his chest, where his heartbeat pounded violently under her palms. If you walk away from me again, Ethan said, voice raw, I won't survive it. Not this time. Kiara tried to pull back, tried to build walls, but the desperation in his voice shattered her. Ethan? He stepped closer. Stay, he whispered, with me, please. And then before she could think, before she could run, before the fear could win, Ethan kissed her. Not cautiously, not gently, not like the tentative brushes of lips they'd shared before. This kiss was fire. 4 years of longing, 4 years of pain, 4 years of unsaid words and broken promises. His hands framed her face. Her fingers fisted his shirt. He pulled her closer, 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 and she didn't push him away. She kissed back hungrily, desperately, like she was starving for him, like her body remembered everything they had been, everything they could be. Ethan groaned softly against her mouth, deepening the kiss. Kiara felt herself unravel, felt her heart open, felt the walls she'd built collapse. This wasn't a mistake. It wasn't weakness. It was truth. When they finally broke apart, breathless foreheads pressed together, Kiara whispered, I'm scared. I know, Ethan murmured, but I'm here. His thumb brushed her bottom lip, swollen from the kiss. And I'm not letting you go again. Their moment didn't last. It never did. Minutes later, alarms blared in the penthouse. Multiple devices pinged at once. Screens flickered to life. A video link. Nathaniel's voice crackled through Ethan's comm. Ethan? Layla released something. And you need to see it before the board does. Ethan clicked open the file. Kiara leaned over his shoulder, then froze. Her stomach twisted. No, she whispered. No, she didn't. But Layla had. The video was a montage, cut, stitched, and edited to look damning. Clips of Kiara receiving documents from Ethan's assistant. Clips of her entering his office late. Clips of her receiving a company check. Clips of Ethan handing her something in a hallway. All sliced out of context. All rearranged, overlaid with a chilling narration in Layla's voice. Here is the woman controlling your CEO. Here is the girl exchanging intimacy for power. Here is proof she manipulated her way into the highest seat in Huxtech. The clip spread like wildfire across internal systems, social media, investor channels. By the time the video ended, Kiara couldn't breathe. Her body shook. Her throat closed. Her hands felt numb. This will destroy me, she whispered. Ethan, this will bury me. Ethan grabbed her shoulders. Kiara, look at me. She couldn't. She was drowning in humiliation, in anger, in fear. The screen flashed again. A message from the board's crisis committee. Effective. Immediately, Kiara Nix is placed under temporary suspension pending investigation. Kiara's world shattered. She stumbled back. Lucky whimpered at her feet, sensing her pain. Ethan swore under his breath, punching the wall so hard it left a crack. No. No, they can't do this. They don't have the authority. They do, Kiara whispered. And it's the right move, at least from their perspective. It's a fucking lie. It doesn't matter. She closed her eyes. Tears spilled. Ethan, I'm suspended. He reached for her. This time she didn't pull away, but her voice trembled like a candle in the wind. Layla won. She finally got between us. Ethan cupped her face, his thumbs wiping away tears that wouldn't stop. No, he whispered. No, Kiara. This isn't her victory. His voice hardened. This is war. The suspension email hit Kiara like a bullet, not because she feared losing her job. She had lost bigger things before. But because she saw Ethan's face the moment he read it. Shock, rage, helplessness, and something deeper. Something that pierced her heart, fear. Fear of losing her again. She felt his heart breaking, even before her own began to crack. The penthouse felt smaller than it ever had. Ethan paced across the marble floor, phone in hand, already calling legal, HR, PR, any department that might reverse the board's decision. No. You listen to me. She did nothing wrong. I don't care what circulated. She's innocent. Kiara, touched his arm lightly. Ethan. He froze. She rarely interrupted him like that. Her voice was soft, steady, too steady. Stop. His throat tightened. Kiara, don't say what you're about to say. She looked up at him, and the exhaustion in her eyes nearly brought him to his knees. Ethan, I need to leave. No. He grabbed her shoulders, unable to breathe. No, absolutely not. Please, she whispered, don't make this harder. You promised. Ethan said, voice cracking. You said we'd try again. You said you wouldn't run. I'm not running. She said, though her voice trembled. I'm protecting you. He shook his head violently. I don't want your protection. Yes, you do. Her whisper cut through him like glass. This scandal is about to explode. Layla made me look like a manipulator, a threat, a woman who used you, and the board believes her. Her eyes glistened. They think you've lost your judgment. I don't care what they think. But I do. She interrupted again, firmer this time. I care, Ethan, about your career, your company, your life. He stepped closer, voice raw. And what about my heart? Does that matter? The question shattered her. She looked away, blinking quickly, trying to stop the tears. It matters too much, she whispered. That's why I have to go. Ethan's breath stuttered. Kiara? He took her hands, holding them against his chest. You walk out that door, and I don't know if I can come back from it. Her tears spilled then, soft, silent, devastating. Ethan, staying will destroy you. Leaving will destroy me, but I can survive my own heartbreak. She lifted his hands and held them to her cheek. But I can't watch you lose everything because of me. He felt himself breaking open. Kiara stepped forward, resting her forehead against his. I want you, she whispered. I want us, more than anything. His hands trembled around her. Then stay. She let out a soft, broken sound. I can't. The floor disappeared beneath him. He wrapped his arms around her, crushing her against him. They clung to each other, like drowning souls sharing the same last breath. Her fingers dug into his back, his face buried into her hair. I love you, he whispered, voice shaking. I've always loved you. She sobbed softly. I've never stopped. They held each other until the sky outside turned purple and gold, until there were no words left to speak, and no strength left to fight. Finally, Kiara pulled back. She cupped his face gently, memorizing every line as if she feared she would forget him. Goodbye, Ethan. He shook his head in disbelief. No, don't say goodbye. Say see you soon. Say later. Say anything but goodbye. She kissed him slowly, softly, achingly. A kiss full of promises they weren't allowed to keep. When she pulled away, tears wet both their cheeks. Goodbye, she whispered. Ethan couldn't move. He couldn't breathe. He couldn't speak. He watched her pick up her bag, whistle for Lucky, and walk toward the elevator. Lucky stopped, halfway looking back at Ethan with confused eyes. Go, Ethan whispered, voice breaking. Take care of her. The elevator doors closed behind her. Ethan collapsed against the wall, sliding down until he hit the floor. For the first time in years, he cried without restraint. Kiara didn't stop shaking until she reached the outskirts of the city, an Airbnb cottage surrounded by wildflowers and silence. Lucky curled up beside her, resting his head on her lap, as if trying to absorb her sadness. She stroked his fur with trembling fingers. I did the right thing, she whispered into the empty room, but the words didn't convince her. At night, she lay awake clutching the pillow, imagining Ethan in his empty penthouse, staring at the place where she used to sit. She cried until sleep finally dragged her under. Ethan didn't fare better. The next days were a blur of board meetings, PR crises, shareholder calls, and whispers behind his back. He barely ate, barely slept, barely functioned. Nathaniel, watching his friend unravel, grabbed him by the collar one night in the office. You need help, Nathaniel said. You're spiraling. I'm booking a therapist, a crisis counselor. I don't care if you fire me. Ethan didn't fight, didn't argue. He was too hollow. That night in the therapist's office, he confessed things he'd buried for years, his guilt about his family, his obsession with protecting Kiara, his fear that he was destined to destroy everything he touched. "Does Kiara know?" the therapist asked gently. "No," Ethan whispered, "and now she's gone." Meanwhile, in the cottage, Kiara began to rebuild the pieces of herself. Slowly, painfully, alone, but not abandoned. Lucky nuzzled her whenever she cried. She took walks, read books, brewed tea she barely drank. Her phone stayed silent. Ethan didn't call, because he respected her choice, because he loved her enough not to pull her back, and that hurt worse than any lie ever could. One night, 3 days after she left, Kiara found something under her door, a small black USB. No note, no marks, just silence. Her hands trembled as she plugged it into her laptop. An audio file popped up. She pressed play. Layla's voice filled the room first, then Daniel's, then a colder, older woman's. Ethan's mother. Kiara's breath froze. It wasn't just gossip, not just sabotage, not just jealousy. It was a conspiracy, a real one. Her father's death, the cover-up, the threats, the manipulation, everything she'd ever feared, laid bare in their own voices. Her heart pounded violently. By the time the recording ended, Kiara couldn't move. Her world spun, darkened, clarified. Whatever she had run from, whatever she had tried to leave behind was coming for her. She closed the laptop with shaking hands. "Oh God," she whispered. Lucky whined at her feet. Kiara realized she had been wrong. Leaving didn't protect Ethan. Leaving only made her a target without him. And what she held in her hands could destroy his family. Her breath trembled. "I have to go back." The cottage was silent, except for the faint hum of Kiara's laptop. Outside, the wind rustled through the wildflowers. Inside, Kiara sat, frozen arms wrapped around herself, breath shallow, watching the audio file glow on the screen like a loaded weapon. Her finger hovered above the play button. She almost closed it, almost shut the laptop, almost threw it across the room. Because some truths were too dangerous, too heavy, too irreversible. But Kiara had run from the truth once, and it destroyed her life. She wouldn't run again. She clicked play. The recording began with static. Then Layla's voice, soft, girlish, frighteningly calm. "I loved him first. I loved him before she ever arrived. She took everything that was supposed to be mine." Kiara's breath caught. Her palms went slick. Layla continued, voice trembling with intensity. "I watched him from the moment I joined Huxtech. I memorized his schedule, his coffee order, the way he smiled at interns when they were nervous. I was the only one who deserved him." A second voice entered, smooth, cold. "Daniel, you want Ethan fine. Help us, and he'll have no choice but to stay away from her. She's a distraction, a problem, and not our kind of people." Kiara's heart slammed painfully against her ribs. The old wound rejection, because of race-class status, opened so sharply she felt herself physically flinch. Layla laughed, softly, unhinged. "I'll do anything. Just tell me what to do." Daniel replied without hesitation. "Keep her busy. Feed her lies. Track everything she does at the hospital. Make sure nothing looks suspicious when the cutbacks roll in." Kiara's stomach clenched violently. The cutbacks. The file Ethan had found. The one that killed her father. Then a third voice joined, calm, elegant, dripping malice. "Ethan's mother. The Nix man is too expensive to maintain. He has no insurance, no influence. Every dollar spent on him is wasted. Authorize the downgrade. Kiara choked on a breath. Her vision blurred, but the recording wasn't done. Daniel again. Kiara's father will stabilize. He always does. This isn't lethal. Layla's voice sharpened with resentment. She won't leave Ethan unless she's forced to. A pause. Then Ethan's mother spoke again, each word slicing cleaner than a scalpel. She'll leave if she thinks it saves her father's life. Kiara's throat closed. Her knees buckled. Lucky barked frantically at her side, sensing her spiraling panic. But she pressed one hand to the table, forcing herself upright. More static. Then Layla again, voice brittle. You swear. If I send her the warning, if I tell her Ethan is the reason her father's treatment is in danger, she'll disappear. Daniel's voice curved with cruel satisfaction. She'll run. Girls like her know their place. Kiara's heart shattered. The tea mug on the counter. The couch blanket Lucky dragged earlier, the windows overlooking wildflowers, everything blurred. Her hand shook so violently that the USB slipped from her fingers and clattered onto the floor. She stared at it like it was a piece of shrapnel. Her chest felt too tight. Her lungs burned. Her body wanted to collapse. 4 years of guilt. 4 years of longing. 4 years of believing she had failed Ethan and failed her father. But she hadn't failed. She had been manipulated, hunted, used. Her father hadn't died because the world was unfair. He died because the Huxley family had decided he was disposable, because Layla wanted Ethan, because Daniel wanted power, because Ethan's mother wanted efficiency, and Kiara was the casualty they accepted. Her vision blurred again, but this time with a different emotion. Anger. It started as a spark in her chest, then a flame, then an inferno. Lucky nudged her, whining softly. Kiara wiped her tears and straightened spine, stiffening with resolve. She picked up the USB and held it tightly. She understood now. Her heartbreak, her father's death, her spiral into guilt and self-blame, every piece of her suffering had been orchestrated. Not fate, not bad luck. People. People with names. People with power. Ethan's family. She thought of Ethan, broken, grieving, drowning in professional pressure, entirely unaware of how deep the betrayal ran. He didn't know. She knew he didn't know. But he deserved the truth, and she deserved justice. Her voice was hoarse when she whispered, "Dad, I'm sorry I didn't fight sooner." Lucky nudged her hand again. Kiara drew a shaky breath, and something inside her crystallized. No more running. No more hiding. No more letting others decide her fate. She packed her bag with trembling hands, grabbed Lucky's leash, wrapped herself in a coat, and left the cottage. She didn't look back. As she locked the door behind her, the last remnants of the woman who had run away died quietly. She opened the car door, her reflection staring back, eyes fierce, jaw set, tears dried into determination. "I'm going back to the city," she said aloud, as if claiming it as truth. Lucky barked in agreement. Kiara slid into the driver's seat and whispered into the quiet, "This ends now." The engine ignited. The road ahead glowed with the last colors of dusk. And somewhere in the city, a city that once chewed her up and spit her out, Kiara Nix was returning. Not as a victim, not as a pawn, but as the storm. The city skyline appeared through the windshield as Kiara drove back into Manhattan, cold, sharp, glittering like the edge of a blade. Her hands tightened on the steering wheel. She had left this place to survive. Now, she was returning to finish the war it started. Lucky sat in the passenger seat, tail curled around his paws, sensing her tension. When Kiara hit a red light, she reached out and stroked his head. "We're doing this," she murmured. "No more running." The light turned green. She drove toward Huxley Tower, toward the boardroom where Ethan was about to be destroyed. The 76th floor of Huxley was normally serene, quiet halls, glass walls, fountains humming softly. But today, it buzzed with tension. Inside the boardroom, 12 directors sat around the long, black marble table. Screens behind them showed stock fluctuation graphs and headlines about the CEO scandal. Ethan stood alone at the far end of the room, shoulders stiff, jaw clenched. He looked exhausted, haunted, defeated. Nathaniel stood beside him, whispering updates. "The vote is happening in minutes. Daniel's pushing hard. They're calling it moral instability and negligence." "If they succeed, I know," Ethan said quietly. He didn't look like the billionaire prodigy anymore. He looked like a man moments away from losing everything. And he had accepted it, because somewhere deep in his heart, he believed Kiara was gone for good. When the chairman cleared his throat and announced, "We will proceed with the vote to remove Ethan Huxley from the position of CEO." The doors to the boardroom blew open. Every head turned sharply. Kiara stood in the doorway, coat still dusted with rain hair. Wind-tousled eyes, steady with fire. Behind her, Lucky barked once like an announcement. The room went silent. Ethan froze. For a moment, it looked like he couldn't breathe. His lips parted slightly, shocked disbelief, heartbreak, all colliding at once. "Kiara," he whispered. She stepped forward, chin high. "I'm here." Ethan's eyes glistened instantly. He took a step toward her, then stopped, as if afraid she might disappear again. But Kiara kept walking, and with every step, Ethan's face crumpled a little more. "You came back," he whispered. "I had to." Her voice wavered. "I had to fight for you, for my father, for the truth." Nathaniel exhaled in relief. The board watched with razor-sharp interest. Daniel rose from his chair, eyes widening. What the hell is she doing here? She was suspended. Kiara didn't even look at him. She reached into her coat and pulled out the USB. The room shifted. Daniel's face drained of color. Kiara placed the USB on the center of the table as if she were laying a weapon down. "Before you vote," she said steadily, "you need to hear something." The chairman frowned. "What is this, the truth?" Kiara replied. She plugged the USB into the board's central console. A moment later, the room filled with Layla's trembling voice. "I loved him first. I always loved him. She took him from me." The director stiffened. Then Daniel's voice. "Help us bury the hospital situation, and I'll help you get Ethan. She's not our kind, Layla. You understand me?" A murmur rippled through the room. Then the one voice Kiara had dreaded most, Ethan's mother. Cold, controlled, deadly. "Terminate the Nixman's treatment. We do not spend resources on lives that yield no return." The entire board inhaled sharply. Daniel's face went white. The chairman's jaw dropped. Nathaniel swore under his breath. Ethan? He closed his eyes. The truth burned him alive. When the recording ended, silence flooded the room, thick, suffocating, irreversible. Kiara looked at the board directly. 4 years ago, my father died because the Huxley family cut his treatment to save money. I left Ethan because I thought my leaving could save his life. She swallowed. Instead, I walked into a trap orchestrated by envy, classism, and cruelty. Daniel slammed a fist onto the table. This is manipulated audio. Kiara turned to him, eyes icy. You should be careful what you say. There are live timestamps and encrypted signatures verifying everything. Nathaniel stepped forward. And the IP address that sent this file belongs to Layla Boone, who we intercepted at the airport this morning. She confessed everything. Daniel blanched. Ethan looked like every bone in his body was vibrating with rage. The chairman stood abruptly. I moved to suspend Daniel Huxley from all board duties pending a full investigation. Seconded, several directors said at once. Daniel's composure cracked. You're all making a mistake. Security approached. Daniel twisted toward Ethan, eyes burning. This isn't over. Ethan didn't move. Get out, he said quietly. Daniel was escorted out of the room, his legacy, his power, his facade crumbling behind him. Then all eyes turned to Ethan's mother, stern, elegant, composed. But even she couldn't hide the cracks. The chairman spoke again. A separate investigation will be launched into your involvement. Until then, you are removed from all decision-making authority. She stiffened. You will regret this, she hissed. No, Kiara said softly. You will. Security escorted her out next. And with that, the empire that once controlled every part of Kiara's life fell. Silence fell again. Heavy, emotion-filled, life-changing. Ethan looked around the room, at the board, at the screens, at the shattered illusions of his family. Then he looked at Kiara. His voice broke. You came back, he whispered again. She stepped toward him, the weight of everything between them trembling in the air. I left to protect you, she whispered, tears forming. But I came back to fight beside you, because I finally understood. She touched his cheek gently. I don't have to carry this alone, and neither do you. Ethan's tears spilled freely. He pulled her into his arms, in front of everyone. He didn't care. He kissed her this time, not with desperation or stolen passion, but with pure, fierce certainty. A declaration, a promise, a rebirth. When they broke apart, Ethan turned to the board. I have something to say, he announced. The room held its breath. Ethan took Kiara's hand and laced their fingers together. Kiara Nix is not just my assistant, he said, voice steady, strong, unshakable. She is the woman I love, the person who uncovered corruption in this company, the only one who told the truth when no one else would. He lifted her hand gently. She deserves to stand beside me, and I will stand beside her. A few board members exchanged glances, but none dared speak. No one could. The truth was too clear. The evidence undeniable. The loyalty between Ethan and Kiara unbreakable. Then Ethan did something unexpected. He knelt, not with a ring, not for a proposal, but because he needed her to see everything he felt, without pride, without power, without fear. Kiara, he said, voice trembling, I am not asking you to marry me. Not yet, but if you stay with me, I will spend the rest of my life trying to deserve you. He looked up at her with tear-filled sincerity. That's my promise. Kiara's breath hitched. Her heart cracked open this time, not from pain, but from overwhelming love. She cupped his face, smiling through tears. Ethan Huxley, you already do. The room blurred around them. The world seemed to vanish. It was just the two of them, together, finally, unbroken. 1 year later, spring returned to the city, soft, warm, shimmering with promise. And for the first time in a very long time, so did Kiara's peace. She stood by the floor-to-ceiling windows of Huxtech Tower, watching the morning sunlight spill over the skyline. Below her, the city buzzed with energy, unaware of the battles she and Ethan had survived to get here. Behind her, Lucky trotted proudly across the polished floors, wearing his official custom vest, Chief Happiness Officer, Employee of the Year. Every morning, he made his rounds, visiting every department, lifting spirits and occasionally stealing snacks. Kiara smiled as employees waved at him with adoration. A tap on the glass made her turn. Ethan leaned against the doorframe of her new office, modern, sleek, filled with glowing monitors. Director Nix, he said with a playful bow, your empire awaits. She rolled her eyes, though her lips curved into a smile. Stop calling this an empire. Then stop running it like one, he teased, stepping inside. Kiara had been appointed Chief Data Security Officer 6 months earlier. It was her department's innovations, her reforms that restored the company's reputation after the scandal, and everyone knew it. Ethan walked toward her tie, slightly undone, eyes soft. You look beautiful, he murmured. I'm wearing security badges and holding a cup of burnt coffee. Still beautiful, he insisted, brushing a kiss against her cheek before she shooed him away. Cheeks warm. Lucky barked, jealous. Ethan bent down and scratched him. Yes, yes, you too. Your Highness. Lucky wagged his tail like he accepted this formal apology. Justice, too, had taken its course over the past year. Daniel Huxley had been sentenced to 7 years in federal prison for medical fraud, bribery, and obstruction. For a man who once wielded power effortlessly, his fall was a spectacle the city never forgot. Ethan's mother faced civil prosecution. The court ordered her to pay compensation to families affected by the hospital's cost-cutting program, including Kiara's. She was placed under supervised release, her influence finally broken. Kiara hadn't attended the sentencing. She didn't need to. Justice didn't erase her father's absence, but it restored something precious, his name, his dignity, the truth, and that helped her heal. In her apartment, now filled with plants, framed photos, and a quiet warmth, Kiara kept a restored fishing hat on her shelf. Her father's. She touched it every morning before leaving for work. Miss you, she whispered. But I'm okay now. By summer, Huxtech was thriving. Ethan's leadership, authentic, transparent, unafraid, rebuilt trust with the public. Investors returned. Employees rallied behind him. Together, Ethan and Kiara became the story the world admired. A CEO and the woman who saved him. Partners, equals, fighters. A love born through fire. One golden afternoon, Ethan drove Kiara to a lake far outside the city, a quiet place. Green, gentle, where the wind carried the scent of pine and memory. Kiara froze when she recognized the spot. This is where my dad used to fish, she whispered. How did you? Ethan smiled softly. I asked your mom. Kiara turned to him, heart thudding. Ethan, why bring me here? He didn't answer. Instead, he stepped closer and took her hands. The lake shimmered behind him. The sunlight haloed around his hair. And for a moment, time folded into stillness. I wanted the man you loved most, Ethan said quietly, to be with us today. Tears stung Kiara's eyes. Ethan drew a shaky breath. Kiara. Nix, he began, voice raw. You walked back into my life when everything felt lost. You stood between me and ruin. You fought for me when you had every reason to walk away. Her chin trembled. And you taught me that love isn't perfect. It's choosing each other, even when it's hard, especially when it's hard. He bent one knee slowly, reverently. Not flashy, not staged, just honest. Kiara gasped, a hand flying to her mouth. Lucky yipped enthusiastically and ran in circles around them. Ethan looked up at her with the kind of vulnerability he once feared. If there is a next life, he whispered, I hope I find you first, every time. Kiara burst into tears, the kind made of joy, grief, gratitude, and love woven together. Yes, she choked on a laugh and a sob all at once. Yes, Ethan, 1,000 times yes. He stood, and she threw her arms around him, burying her face in his shoulder as he lifted her off the ground and spun her gently. Their kiss was soft but deep, a promise made under open sky, witnessed only by the water, the wind, and Lucky dancing at their feet. Months passed. Life stitched itself beautifully back together. Kiara and Ethan moved into a seaside house. Bright walls, open windows, a yard where Lucky could chase seagulls without getting arrested by beach security. In the evenings, Kiara cooked while Ethan tried and failed to chop vegetables without nearly losing a finger. They danced in the kitchen sometimes. Slow, close, familiar. Their love felt different now. Still passionate, but steadier. A partnership built on truth, every hard piece of it. One evening, as the sky turned rose gold over the ocean, Kiara and Ethan walked hand in hand along the coastline. Lucky ran ahead, barking at waves and attempting to befriend every crab in sight. The air hummed with salt and laughter. Kiara paused, lifting a hand to her stomach instinctively. The smallest knowing smile softened her face. Ethan noticed immediately. He always did. He stepped beside her, brushing a strand of hair behind her ear. You're thinking about telling him, he asked gently. Kiara rested her palm against her belly, the place where a tiny heartbeat had begun weeks earlier. The secret she'd carried alone, waiting for the right moment. Yes, she whispered. I think he should know. Ethan's eyes softened, glowing with a warmth that melted her entirely. He placed his hand over hers, 2 beats hers and his over the quiet beginning of a third. He didn't speak for a moment. Then, voice thick, he said, so the 2 people who love me most are right here. Kiara laughed, wiping at her eyes as she leaned into him. Lucky ran back and barked as if cheering. Ethan wrapped an arm around Kiara's shoulders, pulling her close as the sun dipped into the horizon. Her head rested against his chest. His chin rested atop her hair. The ocean whispered around them. Their future glowed ahead, bright, vast, beautifully uncertain. Ethan, she murmured. We finally made it home. He kissed the top of her head. Yes, he whispered. We're home. The end.